The wooden doors of courtroom 6A creaked open, and a chill of silence swept across the room. Every whisper, every shifting chair, every single sound died as the woman no one expected to rise finally did. Meri Brown, the woman once dismissed as background as the forgotten first wife. The woman who had endured 30 years of broken promises, humiliation, and silence. Her heels struck the floor with a steady rhythm. Click, click, click. Each step echoed like a gavel announcing Judgment Day. She wore a dark navy blazer, her blonde hair tied back in a severe knot, her face pale but burning with determination. In her hand, a thick folder, edges worn, stuffed with documents that could unravel decades of Kody Brown's empire. Not once did she blink. Not when she passed Robyn, who sat trembling beside Kody. Not when she locked eyes with the man who had once promised her equality, dignity, and forever. Meri approached the witness stand, adjusted the microphone, lowered it slightly. The room was silent. Every journalist, every analyst, every curious face leaned forward, waiting for the words they knew would change everything. Her voice was steady at first, though laced with anger that had waited too long to be heard. "Your Honor," she began, her tone slicing through the air like a blade, "I stand here today to reclaim what was owed to me. Not just as a wife, not just as a mother, but as a woman, as a human being." Gasps, murmurs, the gallery erupted in whispers. She turned her head, eyes landing on Kody. His jaw was clenched, his arms folded tight across his chest, his body language screaming defiance. Meri didn't flinch. "I want what's mine," she said again, louder, clearer. "And I'm not backing down." Reporters scribbled frantically. The audience buzzed. For years, America had watched Meri Brown's heartbreak, her loneliness, her catfishing scandal, her quiet attempts to cling to a crumbling marriage. She had been the loyal first wife of a man who openly favored another. But that Meri was gone. Today, she was no longer the quiet background character. She was the storm. She lifted the first paper from her folder. "This," she said, holding it high, "is an August 14th, 2018 payment statement. A deposit from my business account into the family trust. That trust was meant to cover the Kody Pass property." The judge leaned forward. The courtroom fell still again. "And yet," Meri continued, her voice cracking, "my name was never placed on the deed." Another paper lifted. "This is our broker's email, confirming my investment interest." Another. "And this," her hands shook slightly now, but her voice only grew stronger. "This is a copy of the show contract. The very contract we all signed. The one that promised every dollar from Sister Wives would go toward our shared family future. Our homes, our land. Kody Pass." Her lawyer nodded firmly. Janelle, seated behind her, crossed her arms and tilted her head forward, silent but visibly seething. Meri's gaze cut into Kody. "When we divorced in 2014 so that you could adopt Robyn's children, I let go of my legal marriage. But you told me spiritual equality would remain. You told me our family covenant was unbreakable." Her eyes narrowed. Her voice dropped, dangerous now. That was a lie. Robyn shifted uncomfortably. Kody's jaw tightened like stone. "I gave 30 years of my life," Meri's voice broke. "I raised a child. I helped build a show that made this entire empire possible. And now I am told, quietly, indirectly, and deliberately, that I am not worthy of even a single acre of land." Her hand gripped the wooden stand so hard her knuckles turned white. "I surrendered my legal marriage. I surrendered my voice. But I am finished surrendering." A thunderous silence consumed the courtroom. Janelle's lips curved into the faintest nod, her eyes blazing with the same fire. The judge finally broke the silence. "Mrs. Brown, are you claiming that Kody Pass was always intended to be split equally among the wives?" Meri's voice rang out like a hammer on steel. "Yes, Your Honor. That was the deal. Verbal, emotional, financial, and on paper." The judge narrowed her eyes. "Did you know your name wasn't on the deed?" Meri swallowed. "Not until 2023, when Janelle and I compared documents. That's when the betrayal surfaced." "And what did you do?" the judge asked. Meri's head turned slowly toward Kody. "I confronted him. He said he worked harder, that he deserved more. But we never built this family on who made what. We built it on a promise, that we were equals." The courtroom rustled with murmurs again. The bailiff moved to collect her stack of evidence, handing it to the clerk. Kody's lawyer jumped up, his voice cold, trying to slice through Meri's testimony. "Objection, Your Honor. Emotional context. Mrs. Brown's role in this family was spiritual, not financial. She contributed nothing compared to my client. Meri scoffed under her breath, retreating from the stand. Her lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman in a tan suit, rose instantly. With all due respect, she fired back. This entire family was bound under one financial umbrella. TV money, business income, shared accounts, blurred together on purpose by Mr. Brown. Meri was not just a spiritual wife. She was an unpaid partner in a decades-long enterprise that funded Coyote Pass. The judge raised an eyebrow, scribbling notes. Kody turned his gaze on Meri, his face unreadable. For years, she had looked at him with adoration. But now, she looked at him with the cold fire of an enemy. And that made her dangerous. Because Coyote Pass was not just dirt, not just pine trees. It was a promise. The only thing that had kept Meri clinging to the idea that maybe, just maybe, she still belonged. And now that promise was dead. That was all anyone could hear. Silence so sharp it cut through the marble pillars of the courtroom like a blade. For years, Kody Brown had built his kingdom on the backs of women who believed they were partners, co-owners, family. But in this room, under oath, the illusion crumbled. It became clear, Kody had never regarded them as partners at all. To him, they had been tenants, temporary, disposable, replaceable. And sitting beside him, draped in false innocence, was Robyn. The wife he had once claimed was the great love of his life. But in truth, she had been his co-conspirator. The prosecution revealed it. Emails, cold, undeniable digital footprints that told a story of secrecy and betrayal. One email read aloud by Meri's attorney. "We don't want the other wives to make things messy. Better if we finalize everything before they notice." Robyn Brown, to the family's real estate attorney. The gallery gasped. Reporters' pens froze in midair. The defense scrambled, claiming it was taken out of context. That Robyn only meant to simplify legal complexity. But Meri's attorney shot forward, her eyes blazing. Then why, she demanded, were the wives never informed? Why were no meetings called? And why, Your Honor, was Meri Brown still liable for property tax on land she did not legally own? The courtroom was silent again, because there were no answers. No one could explain it away. Flashback. The empty land. Weeks before this trial, Meri had stood alone at the edge of Coyote Pass. The wind cut bitterly through her coat, pine needles crunching beneath her boots. She looked out over the barren land that was supposed to be filled with 4 custom homes, a dream, a covenant. She remembered 2018, Kody standing tall, gesturing dramatically, painting his fantasy with words. "There'll be a porch here," he had said. "A big one. Meri, you'll have the best view." She had smiled then, imagining coffee on that porch, imagining grandchildren running through the yard, imagining reconciliation, maybe even love returning. Now all she saw was dust. All she held was a rock in her palm, heavy, cold. "These," she whispered to herself that night, "are all I will ever receive. If I do not fight." That was the moment Meri Brown drew her line in the sand. Back in court. When Meri and Janelle entered that courtroom, they were not wives anymore. They were not sisters in a broken covenant. They were adversaries. And they were ready. The air was tense, like glass stretched to its breaking point. A short recess had been called, but nobody moved. Reporters sat frozen. Viewers in the overflow room leaned forward. Everyone was waiting for the blow they knew was coming. Meri straightened her blouse. She breathed deep. Her heart raced. Not from fear, but from justice finally clawing its way out of decades of deception. The clerk called her name. "Mrs. Brown, please approach the stand." The hush rolled through the courtroom like a tidal wave. Meri rose. Her eyes brushed past Kody, stone-faced, fingers drumming impatiently against the table. Past Robyn, whispering nervously to their lawyer. Both of them watching her with unease because they knew this was her moment. The first blow. Meri's second testimony. She faced the judge, her voice calm but charged with fire. "Your Honor, I spent 30 years in a family where silence was not only loyalty but policy. I was told to be patient, to have faith, to wait, to believe that if I simply endured, things would balance out." She paused, looked down at her hands, then raised her head again. "But waiting doesn't build houses. Waiting doesn't put your name on deeds. Waiting doesn't protect your rights. And that, Your Honor, is why I am here." Her lawyer approached with a thick folder, 40 pieces of evidence. Transfers, tax statements, unedited contracts, TLC correspondence. Meri opened the first one. "This," she said firmly, holding up the paper, "is the 2018 contract signed by every wife, by Kody himself. It states that TLC income and family business revenue would be invested equally into developing Coyote Pass." The judge nodded. Exhibit 17A entered into record. Kody shifted, his discomfort finally visible. Meri pressed on. "We were told over and over again that each parcel would be ours, that this land was our legacy. But in 2023, I discovered the land had already been divided. Quietly, legally, and every acre was placed under the control of Kody and Robyn." Gasps rippled across the courtroom. Even the judge leaned forward, her brow furrowed. Then came the email proof. Meri's attorney pulled out the bombshells. Emails directly from the real estate attorney's office. She read one aloud. "Robyn and I are the only ones seriously investing in the land. The others can build later if they still want to be involved." Kody Brown, February 2021. Another. "I believe it is best we complete paperwork before the wives start asking questions. Less drama down the line." Kody Brown to the same attorney. And finally, yes, finalize under our names. "We'll handle things quietly." Robyn Brown, March 2021. The courtroom erupted. Gasps, whispers, the sound of shock vibrating off every wall. "Out of context," Kody growled, slamming his palm on the table. "That's out of context." The judge's gavel cracked. "Mr. Brown, you will remain silent unless spoken to." The silence that followed was heavier than stone. Meri looked directly at Kody, her voice unshaking now. "I never received notice of any deed transfer. Not once. Even though I invested money from my boutique. Even though I paid property taxes on land I did not legally own. I was excluded. But I kept paying. Do you know why, Your Honor?" Her eyes never left Kody's. "Because I trusted him." The words hit harder than any piece of paper. She turned another page, her voice rising. "This is a payment I made, $18,200 for my LuLaRoe business. Deposited into the joint account. Kody told me this payment secured my parcel. My piece of Coyote Pass." She raised the paper high for the courtroom to see. "This," she said, "is my proof." The gallery was silent again. But this silence wasn't disbelief. It was the silence of impact. The silence before everything broke open. The silence before everything broke open. Meri turned back to the judge, clutching the thick folder of evidence like it was both shield and sword. Her voice didn't tremble, though her eyes glistened. "Your Honor," she said, lifting another slip of paper, "I have 6 of these. 6 transfers. And yet I'm told I didn't pay enough. That I wasn't invested. But let me be clear, I did invest. I invested my money. I invested my name. I invested 30 years of my life into a man who made me invisible." The room held its breath. Even the scraping of pens from the reporter's gallery ceased. Fans, family, strangers, all sat stunned. The judge cleared her throat, voice crisp but heavy. "So, your argument is that there were verbal, written, and financial agreements among all family members. That you acted in good faith, but your name was deliberately erased from legal ownership?" Meri nodded firmly. "Yes, Your Honor." "And you allege that Mr. Brown with Mrs. Brown acted in bad faith to transfer ownership without disclosure?" "Yes." The judge leaned forward. "Then tell me, are you ready to pursue full compensation or force a sale of the property?" Meri didn't flinch. She didn't stall. Her answer came like the crack of thunder. "I'm ready to reclaim what's mine. Either they buy me out at market value, or we divide the land exactly as promised." A ripple surged across the room. Robyn's hand tightened around a balled-up tissue. Kody shifted in his chair, jaw clenched, eyes narrowed. And then it was his turn. The bailiff called his name. Kody Brown rose slowly, dragging himself to the stand with the arrogance of a man who had ruled too long and now realized his crown was slipping. His arms folded across his chest like armor. His jaw worked furiously. But his eyes betrayed panic. The judge wasted no time. "Mr. Brown, did you ever inform Meri Brown that her deed had been transferred?" "No," Kody muttered, almost spitting the word. "Why not?" Because, he snapped, she wasn't interested anymore. She was cold, aloof. She didn't even know if she wanted to build there. Meri sat silent, her hands folded, her face unreadable. The judge continued. "Did she make financial contributions toward the purchase of Coyote Pass?" Kody's mouth twitched. "She might have. I don't know." Meri's attorney shot up, slamming a pile of bank statements on the desk. "Let me remind you. These are her transfers. These are her payments. Are you denying them? Kody glanced down, his facade faltering. No, they're hers. So she did contribute. Yes, Kody growled through gritted teeth. Yet you cut her out. Kody's voice rose, sharp and defensive. I had to act fast. Robyn and I were the only ones taking it seriously. I didn't have time to hold hands and beg them to care. The room gasped. Reporters scribbled furiously. Some in the gallery shook their heads in disbelief. The judge's expression hardened. Mr. Brown, answer plainly. Did you utilize shared family finances, funds contributed by multiple wives to secure property titled only to you and Mrs. Brown? The silence stretched like a blade. Finally, Kody spoke. Yes, the mask shattered. In one word, the patriarch of sister wives exposed himself, not as a leader, but as a manipulator. Not as a provider, but as a thief of trust. Meri closed her eyes, a single tear sliding down her cheek. Not from pain, but from justice finally catching up. Across the room, Robyn sat frozen. Her hand clamped over her mouth, her body trembling. She whispered to their attorney, but no words could save them now. The gallery shifted. Some people gasped, others shook their heads, and still more sat in awed silence. The mythology of the great Kody Brown had cracked wide open. And then, the judge called the next witness. Mrs. Robyn Brown, take the stand. The air shifted instantly. The gallery hushed to a suffocating silence. Even the sound of a chair creaking seemed too loud. Robyn rose on shaky legs, her heels clicking against the polished courtroom floor. Gone was the calm, polished TLC favorite wife. Gone was the serene, smiling woman Kody had placed on a pedestal. In her place stood a figure weighed down by fear and secrets. She adjusted her cardigan, her hands trembling as the bailiff approached. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Her lips quivered. Yes, she whispered. The trial had reached its breaking point. This wasn't just testimony anymore. This was confession. This was confession.